GM, I was very lucky to get to talk with Manu today about his life and the like connection of crypto in Venezuela. It was a very interesting podcast. I learned a lot about like just the practical reality of when people need to eat, can crypto really make an impact? Maybe it's too many levels up. And yeah, it was a very touching conversation, and I learned a lot about the situation in Venezuela, and I hope you do too. GM. So I'm very happy to be hanging out with Manu, a good friend of mine, in the Giveth House, where a place where actually he was starting his current biz with doing good. But we're going to talk Venezuela today and what's going on there. So maybe Manu, you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your backstory.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, first of all, thanks for having me here. So yeah, I'm Manu. I'm originally from Venezuela. I've been working in the crypto space. Let's say I started when the DAO actually started. I started to do a lot of research, and then I found a lot of very interesting concepts, and I just fell into the rabbit hole. Before that, I used to work in the tech industry. I was doing marketing for multiple companies and also growth and product. Work for Rocket Internet, one of the largest venture builders in the world, and also work for Microsoft, for a Microsoft company that was connecting patients and doctors using machine learning and chatbots. Before that, I worked in the oil industry back in Venezuela. And yeah, I realized that there was a lot of shenanigans going on, a lot of corruption, and a lot of stuff that is not really aligned with my values. And then before that, I was also an activist, and also built multiple small shitty websites. And I was doing arbitrage without me knowing that I was doing arbitrage. I was importing stuff from the US and from Europe and reselling it back in Venezuela. At that time, Venezuela had a lot of issues, economically speaking. So I was basically buying dollars from Americans that would come to Venezuela. I would buy dollars and I would save those dollars. And then later on, I would buy stuff in the US or in Europe and just bring it in Venezuela and resell it there.
And what year is that about?
Yeah, so I started doing that. I don't know, when I was like maybe 12 years old, 13 years old.
Oh, wow.
I would say like 20 years ago, more or less. That's when I started. And yeah, the government started to become, let's say, more strict when it comes to exchanging currency. I would say around 2005, more or less, 2008, more or less. And I actually they started allowing Venezuelans to exchange only $5,000 per year. Then
Oh, wow.
then $3,000, and then $1,000, and then $500 and
Wow.
per year,
Wow.
So yeah. So they changed a lot the monetary policy, and you actually had to come to the government and ask them, please, can you exchange me money? So yeah, it was the exchange rate that was at that time wasn't a real exchange rate.
Yeah, and did this with Venezuela, like, I mean, Venezuela was a very wealthy country, maybe like what, 50 years ago, and like had like a good oil boom, and like what actually happened to turn Venezuela into, like, was it a slow inflation of the currency, or was there a change in government that went wrong? Like, I mean, just in your opinion,
Yeah,
what happened?
yeah, thanks for asking that. So Venezuela has been a very, very rich country, and probably because it's one of the richest countries in the world, we are in the situation that we're in. There were actually two political parties, and they were exchanging the presidency between them, pretty much. And this created a lot of discomfort in the society at some point. because the society started to realize, okay, there is only this group and this group, just exchanging between them. And yeah, Chavez was a very well spoken person, let's say, and he was able to convince people that change was needed. And yes, change was needed. But the proposals that were brought by Chavez, or actually maybe not even necessarily Chavez, but the people that were supporting Chavez, were proposals that affected the economy, the whole economy of Venezuela. The government started to tell people in national television, and when I say national television, that's actually an understatement. It was in national television and also in national radio, because the government was enforcing all the media to tune in every time that they wanted to transmit a message, and they will do that every day for hours.
Really?
Yeah,
like just every day for
every
hours.
channel.
The president would be like, "Hey,
Yeah,
send all the TV my way. I got things to say."
Correct. On top of that, they started to expropriate, let's say, other let's say companies in different industries, and yeah, that completely collapsed the economy, not immediately, but with time.
And so Hugo Chavez implemented all these communist regimes. I guess it's called the Bolivarian Revolution or something, and he just took over everything, and then and it ends up being controlled by the government, but
Correct.
but then they don't have any oversight over it, so people kind of just
Do
live
whatever.
under, yeah, they just do whatever, but there's no like foundational economic ground that people who want to start a business can really like play within.
Yeah, there was nothing in place for that.
And how long did it take for people to realize this was making things worse instead of better? And how come they couldn't rise up and like overthrow Chavez, or were his marketing was so good that for the most part people actually thought it was a good thing?
Well, I think it was a combination of both. People, a lot of people believed, even including my grandpa, who was having his land being expropriated. He was also supporting Chavez,
Wow.
So he believed in the ideas that he was bringing in. But yeah, I would say that the decisions that the government decided to take weren't really well thought, and actually just affected affected the whole industry and the whole economy.
And then, but Hugo Chavez, eventually some other president took over, right? And
yeah, well, actually what happened is that people started to realize also what was going on, and a lot of protests started to happen all over the country. The student movement was literally what initiated let's say, the revolution against the revolutionaries.
Wow. Okay. So and this was while Chavez was still in president.
Yes, that was while he was still in presidency. The most thing that affected us was actually the fact that they started to change the monetary policies, and they started to control more and more. When they started to control, immediately the prices of the dollar went up.
So and dollars, and I mean not gold, not obviously at that time there wasn't really Bitcoin so much, but like the people want dollars. Why would they want dollars instead of something else?
So it was like a way for people to actually find a stronger currency, and actually people were just also speculating, that the Venezuelan bolivar was going to just keep going down and the dollar going up. But but it's not that the dollar was going up, it's that the Venezuelan
Yeah.
bolivar was going down, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like what's falling the slowest, basically. And
Correct.
people
Correct.
like the dollar. Yeah. Well, and so eventually crypto started being a thing, right? Like I know Dash is really popular in Venezuela. Do did I mean were you around Venezuela when that was happening, when crypto
Yeah.
started coming in?
Yeah, so for me, when I got exposure to crypto for the first time, it was like, okay, this is like a game currency, you know, like that's what I thought. Like it's a game currency, like people are using it for games. But then I started to hear a lot of people saying mining, mining, mining.
Hmm.
I honestly, at that time, I didn't even dig into it. Like I was so focused at the time on learning about the oil industry, and yeah, I couldn't even think about other things. So when I was thinking about mining, to me it just didn't make sense. The name, like mining
Yeah.
what, like
Yeah. That's
yeah. So
hilarious.
that's when that was basically when I was there, and then I got my diploma in 2013, I believe, and that's when I left. Months later, I left Venezuela.
But so then like how come people can't overthrow the government? Like like it seems like it's so obvious now after 20 something years of just horrible policies. Like how is it that there isn't a way out, for Venezuela?
First of all, the government changed so much our identity. Like the government changed our currency, they changed our flag, they changed our how do you call the nation? I forgot the name of that. Um, they
Anthem?
said
The national anthem?
no, they didn't change the national anthem just
Oh,
for
good. We still have
just,
that.
yeah, we still have that, but the symbol that they usually use, let's say like
Uh-huh.
the symbol of arms and stuff like that, they changed that. They changed also the powers, they change, so it's not the judicial, legislative anymore, but they had created like 30 powers, you know
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
they created powers out of nowhere. They changed everything, they changed the constitution. They literally changed everything. So and also, as I said before, they had the army kind of like blackmailed, you know and why I'm saying this is because the salaries that the army was getting, they were so low that they were actually forced to do illegal shit,
Yeah. Yeah.
to survive, to survive. So yeah, it became so difficult because basically everything was against let's say against change, you
Mhm.
know especially because the government has uh, guns,
Yeah.
and when they start killing people, I was protesting on the streets, and you start seeing, let's say, your friends put in jail, some friends killed, bro. You start to to get scared, and
Yeah.
when they come for you, um, bro, you become just a number. If you die, you are just a
Yeah.
number. Nobody's gonna remember this good guy that was fighting for freedom.
Scary. So yeah, the people can't fight back because they're outgunned, right? There's no they don't have a chance. And I know, at least in the crypto space, I've been around since 2013. Following. There's always like groups that are like, we're bringing crypto to Venezuela, to solve the currency crisis, and even the government started their own crypto. Like, can you go through maybe a little bit of the history of what you know about like crypto in Venezuela?
Yeah, for sure. So it is true that in Venezuela, crypto was being, let's say, adopted, but not by all the Venezuelans. It was by privileged Venezuelans. Um, in order to have, let's say, a mining machine, you have to have thousands of dollars, you know. thousands of dollars, and you had to buy it through one or two companies in China. And those companies, they're selecting actually who were the people that were getting the machines. So, let's start with that. Like when people were mining, it wasn't the people, it was the privileged people, people with money, people with already, let's say, a good position that were able to start mining. And then yes, there was a big narrative with different, let's say, coins, like as you said, Dash. They came to Venezuela. Actually, they did a lot of campaigns, but Venezuelans, they were needing these currency. They were not, let's say, they were needing this currency immediately, not for the future, immediately. So they were just selling it. They were, whenever Dash would give them money, they would just sell it because they need food. People were making at the time $20 to $30 per month, So people needed money just to pay for their stuff. So and also there was a lot of narratives around people in Venezuela using Bitcoin and using Ethereum. In reality, bro, that was not really happening. Venezuelans were not, like when I say Venezuelans, I mean the population. The Venezuelan population wasn't really using cryptocurrency. Why? If you take into consideration that you're making $20 or $30 and your fees is $1, do you think that you're gonna use it? No, you're not gonna use it. You're not gonna use it because every time that you transact, you're gonna lose money. And yeah, basically, the people that were actually really using it in Venezuela were the ones that were privileged. So what started to happen later, because the electricity was subsidized, so because everyone that had some money, they would say, okay, let's buy some mining machines and let's just start mining, because you pay nothing for electricity. So basically you make good money. You could make really, really good money.
And when you say privileged people, you kind of mean people that are favored by the government, right? Like there's not like any, is that, or are there?
I would say not only connected with the government, but also people that, let's say, do have some sort of wealth. Imagine that in the last less than 18 years, maybe in the last 12 years, we have removed 14 zeros out of our currency. 14
zeros. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You're basically working with like Ether versus Way, man. Like that's 18 zeros. Like
that's 18 zeros. Exactly. Yeah. So here it was insane. 14 zeros, bro, that we have removed from our currency. So like if you ask me, Manu, how much is this worth right now? I have no clue, because we're just removing zeros of the currency. And when people tell me the prices,
you gave me, it was really fun. You were passing out Venezuelan currency, like, oh yeah, here's 500,000 or whatever. Here you go. It's just like,
and to be honest, I don't know how much worth they are. Probably they're more worth, like in terms of collectible than actually the real value. The real monetary value that it has. And sometimes even the paper itself is more valuable than the real monetary value that it has. If we come back to your question regarding crypto, as I said, a lot of privileged people were using it. Then also the government started to see what was happening in 2016, 2017 with all the ICOs. And they thought, oh, this is a good way for us to get money to Venezuela. The government thought that they had an opportunity to bring dollars because it wasn't enough with the oil, because all the rigs that they had, they were destroyed. So the production of oil just went down. Imagine that Venezuela had at the time to import gas.
You're kidding me.
No,
really.
And Venezuela was importing gasoline, so we had to make hours, 3-4 hours when I was there, 4 or 5 hours in line to get gasoline. Now 24 hours, 30 hours now.
What? To get
Yes,
gasoline?
to get gasoline.
Because the refinery process isn't
Yeah,
like
it's
they
just
just don't
destroyed.
refine it.
Yeah, it's just destroyed. So, the government was thinking, okay, how can we bring dollars back? Because they couldn't do it enough with the oil. So they said, okay, let's tokenize the oil that is inside Earth. Let's tokenize future oil. And that was the idea of Petro. Crazy part is that the Petro was actually started to be built by one guy. His name is Gabriel, and Gabriel actually is working right now a reserve protocol. And Gabriel was trying to do this with, at least he tells me that he was trying to build this petrodollar with the intention of actually making everything transparent. But these people, they didn't get it. These people didn't know that by having everything transparent, they wouldn't be able to do what they're doing. So basically, a lot of conflict of interest started to happen there. And they started to go against Gabriel. And Gabriel had to escape Venezuela. He's now in the US. And basically, they went with another team and decided to launch the Petro, but not transparently anymore, but using another blockchain that they will manage and that they will control. So basically, it was a scam. It's literally a scam.
And so they just say that it tokenizes oil underground, but there's no actual connection. They just print it whenever they want, just like the regular currency.
Yeah, well, I mean, Venezuela is by far the largest holder of reserves of oil, even more than the second and third together.
I mean, can crypto actually help Venezuela, or just not
Yes.
really?
Yes, it can. Yes, it can help, but it has to be grassroots crypto. It has to be grassroots movements. It cannot be a top-down movement. It has to be that people start to use it. But also, how do we get crypto to people when they are not having, let's say, electricity for 5 hours during the day, when they're not having, let's say, the things that are necessary just to survive, So it's hard. It is definitely super hard to say that crypto could save Venezuela. There are other issues that need to be solved first, like electricity. So it's a very, very hard thing to do, but it can be done. It can definitely be done. But it cannot be a state cryptocurrency.
Yeah. I mean, the state's what's causing most of the issues, right? I mean,
Correct.
before the state went full on communist, Venezuela was an incredible country. And now, I mean, it seems like anyone who can leave just gets out of there.
Most of the people are just trying to leave,
So what do you, I mean, you say that crypto could help if it was grassroots, and like, could you imagine a scenario where that would work? I mean, wouldn't the Venezuelan government just come in and like, it's like another form of protest, and they effectively quash it with violence? Or is there a way that you think that you could actually start some kind of grassroots cryptocurrency and have it actually support the people and have an impact?
Yeah, I think that the main problem is on ramp and off ramp. So if the governments are able to track the on ramp and off ramp, basically they can do what you're saying. They can go against people, right? And they can put them in jail. They can do whatever, right? So I think that that's the major issue, the on ramp and off ramp. But if everyone is using it between them, you don't need to on ramp and off ramp, So That's what I was saying, that yes, I do have hope, because I know that it can happen, and it's happening in the crypto space. Like, crypto projects are just using crypto. They're not using, let's say, fiat. They're just literally transacting between them in crypto. So that needs to happen at the individual level back in Venezuela, that people start just transacting between them. And also there has to be privacy as well. That's also another
Mm-hmm.
issue that we have with the technology that we're using, with let's say with Ether or with Bitcoin, is that is transparent. And I think that if the state has a currency, a cryptocurrency, it has to be transparent from their side, but from the individual side, it has to be private. Why? Is because they can track you, and they can know, let's say, for example, this person transacted with this other person. And even if let's say, even if people don't have Facebook, or even if they don't have a Google account, they can still be tracked. They are being tracked.
There's a really interesting project I saw that came out recently called ZK Bob. Have you seen it at all?
Yeah, I saw it in Denver as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's where
yeah,
I learned about them. That was super
yeah.
interesting.
I've actually started, because you were saying, you need privacy within the orgs, or within, crypto in general. And in Giveth, we pay everyone in crypto. And we're actually demoing, seeing if we can use ZK Bob for payroll and these sorts of things. Because, yeah, exactly. You want your money to be transparent when the government's handling it, but you don't really want everyone to be able to see your salary, or,
No, it
you know,
creates a lot of friction, and you
yeah.
become a target, bro. People haven't realized how dangerous it is to associate your money with your identity. And that's why I also think that the way that we've been doing things in the crypto space until now comes from a place of privilege. We comes from a place of not knowing what is bad and what shit is happening around the world. Like, to me, it's kind of crazy to see someone with millions of dollars and put their name with their ENS directly in the in
Totally.
a to me, it's crazy. To me, it's like,
Yeah.
wow, you're putting a label right here. Do something to me.
Yeah. Well, when they live in LA, or Beverly Hills, it's not really a big deal to have millions of dollars behind your
now
name, right?
now
Right. Yeah,
now
I guess so. Yeah.
And now let's see in a couple of years, when there's like a lot of people angry at the system and angry at people that actually have funds and have money, and when people are actually trying to survive, because that's the issue. It's not now. It's when people try to survive, they'll do anything.
So, what would you imagine a successful support for cryptocurrency? Like, if you could dream up a way that cryptocurrency could actually support the people of Venezuela, like some economy around electricity, power coin, whether that's more grassroots and supports electric, like, or yeah. Do you have any thoughts? Because it's really, it's, people want to help. Like Giveth, we can start, so we could get on board some water nonprofits and get them donations, but these are drops in the bucket. That's not real. That's not really going to change anything. What kind of systems could you imagine with cryptocurrency that could actually like make an impact?
I think we need to change our culture first. And I say it very often: culture needs to be first, because if these people are not, let's say, not knowledgeable and don't have, let's say, the right values, they would just do whatever just for the short term profits, and not thinking long term. you know um, so if you give free money to Venezuelans right now, if you do, let's say, a UBI, believe me, people are just gonna sell it. People are not gonna try to adopt it and transact between them using that technology, because they need food right now. So we need first a cultural shift,
So there's just no trust.
There's no trust. There's
We
no
like
trust.
this. We like to think these currencies are built on trustless protocols, but in the end, they're really, you need networks that trust each other, people who trust each other for any of this stuff to work.
First, yeah, you need that. Another thing that I think is very necessary is that the land and the natural resources are not owned by the state but by the people. If the natural resources and land are owned by the state, nothing is going to change.
I mean, it sounds a little depressing. I'll just be real with you. Like, it sounds like there's really nothing crypto can do right now, not in its current form. And what needs to happen is a cultural and political revolution. And short
I
of
mean,
that,
and crypto can play a role into that part.
yeah.
So just to start the shift, I think that's where crypto can come in. If we start, let's say, funding people that are creating education in Venezuela, people that are creating new culture and so on, those are the things that we should be doing. But the thing is that they don't provide KPI next month,
Yeah.
and that's the problem.
Yeah, quantifying the qualitative. It's a common theme in at least a lot of my work in, like, how do we make the world a better place using cryptocurrency? It's like, how can we quantify the qualitative contributions that people are making? It's basically an impossible task. It's only manageable. It's not solvable.
And because it's impossible, that's where the opportunity is, because I don't think that everything is impossible. I think there's possibilities, right? It's just that we haven't really figured out how to do it, and we're just trapped in that rabbit hole, in that rabbit trap. We just need to get out of that rabbit trap, and then we will be able to, let's say, to have a new form of system. But yeah, to help people get out of the need that they're in is like the primary thing that needs to be done. A lot of projects in the crypto space could also be creating programs that try to educate Venezuelans and try to bring them to their organizations. So like that, organizations can learn from Venezuelans, can learn from Iranians, can learn from people that suffer, can learn about their needs, can learn about their culture, because let's say a lot of people have these complex in the US or in Europe that they're gonna come and save Latin America, and
Yeah.
and I don't think that's the way of doing it. You need to involve the people from there. You need to have people from there actually creating culture, creating the work, and also how can we create, let's say, a system that enables people to raise, to come up, how we can create more leaders, and that those leaders create other leaders, and that the leadership circulates, and that the leaders are not the same always, but the leaders rotate, and everyone should have responsibility.
Do you still have family in Venezuela? Like,
Yeah, I still do have family there.
Yeah.
A big amount.
Really? And so how come they haven't left?
Some they don't want. Some don't want to leave. Let's say my grandpa, who is originally from Spain, he came to Venezuela when he was 17 years old. So he feels more Venezuelan than Spanish, and he's like, this is my home. This is my land. And I don't want to leave my land. That's my grandpa, for example. Most of my cousins, they're out. Like my young family, they're out. The old ones are the ones that are still there because they still have hope. They don't see themselves in a new country. They don't see themselves starting a new life. It's scary for
Yeah.
people. It's very scary for people to start something from scratch. And more when you say I have a house, and now if I go to another country, now I need to rent. Now I don't own anything. I think that that they have values that are probably what they were taught. That having a house is essential. That having a car is good, and so they're trapped in this in this way of thinking.
This is similar to what my buddy Paulo is saying. He's actually upstairs right now. He works for Blossom Labs and with Sam and in One Hive. I don't know if you know Paulo, but
Yeah, I
he,
know him. Yeah.
yeah, he was saying the only family that he has there are his grandparents. Everyone else is left, but his grandparents have the exact same scenario. They own land, they don't want to leave it. I mean, they can't. I mean, if they would have to sell it because if they left it, it's not
Oh,
like they would own it anymore.
they cannot even rent it. In Venezuela, you
Yeah,
cannot even rent it because then you cannot even, let's say, if the person that is there is not paying you, you cannot even claim that back.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. It's just it's a crazy situation for everyone, you know. But well, hopefully, I mean, man, it just seems like there should be a way. When there's so much natural resources, I guess the military just is, you just can't overcome them, right? Not without some kind of other state supporting an effort. And if Venezuela is going to maintain, selling oil to people who want it, then
I think the way is the same Venezuelans. It's not another government coming and helping us out. It's the same Venezuelans.
but how do
That
you,
can
I mean, how do you
how
overcome the military? Yeah, I mean, the military is like,
by the military turning around. But I genuinely think that we just need uh, good leaders,
mhm,
good leaders that educate people and that also show people that there's possibility for change. Because people are right now so like depressed that they really don't think about change, or if they
yeah.
think about change, it's like, yeah, change is gonna happen. You never know, and why I'm saying this is because also we have a lot of influence from Cuba, and in Cuba, um, in Cuba, the dictatorship lasted. It's well, still there. It's just still there for more than 50 years. Um,
Hmm.
so right now, Venezuela is in 20 something years, right? So when Venezuela think about okay change, and they get depressed when they see Cuba, you know.
This problem that you mentioned of like, hey, we want a peaceful revolution, but eventually the rubber bullets turn real, and and what are you going to do? So this is the same issue in Barcelona. It's the same issue in a lot of countries in the world where, hey, they want to do a peaceful revolution, but in the end, the state is not into it. The state's like,
No,
well,
they're provoking,
yeah,
and they
that that's good for you on your piece, but we're going to kill 1,000 students, and what are you going to do? And so like in Barcelona, they basically, the independence movement has kind of said, no, it's not even worth it. It's not worth a violent uprising, because also life isn't so bad in Barcelona.
Mhm.
It's definitely not Venezuela. So, but in my humble opinion, it's a situation where we need to find another way to solve the problems that the state is supposed to be solving, right? And right now, all we have are nonprofits, and nonprofits are not sustainable. They're not an organizational structure that is going to replace a government. But I do think that with cryptocurrencies and economic, it doesn't even need to be crypto, just economic systems that we can that we can do, that we can create, that are outside of the government, that actually solve the problems governments are solving. I have hope that that's the direction that can help all these nations that have horrible governments and don't really have another alternative. Because even if Venezuela does have a military coup, is there going to be another great president who's going to save the day? Probably not. It's just going to be some other douchebag, right?
That's the issue, and that's
Yeah.
the issue, that it's a never-ending loop. You know. So I think I don't think it's any nation state coming and saving us. I don't think necessarily doing a coup d'état is a way of doing it, because it has been tried, and yeah, it's just not happening. I genuinely think that is when humans come together without borders, without nation states, and we're supporting human to human, and
Yeah.
not let's say a big uh, state or anything that will come and save us. It's just us. We are the creators. We created the situation. We might not created the situation that we're in, but we created the destiny that we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in our own hands to change it. It's in our own hands to start supporting one another. It's in our own hands to start creating vouching systems between us. It has to be grassroots. It has to be human to human.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've always thought that crypto will succeed when there are no more borders. Then we can say crypto has succeeded.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, Manu. I really appreciate you taking the time to hang out and talk about your history with Venezuela and the situation down there. It's tragic that it's so bleak, but I'm sure that hopefully the work that we do in the crypto space can actually save the day
100%.
eventually.
That's why I'm here in this space, to be honest, because that's what gives me optimism.
Yeah, me too, man. Well, thanks a lot, dude. And and also, how can people follow you? How can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me in any social media with Manu Alzuru. Yeah, just send me a message, and if you're interested in, let's say, in anything related to helping Venezuela, if you're interested in public goods, if you're interested in let's say mutual aid groups and stuff like that, I'm there for you guys.
And NFTs, because he started an incredible
NFTs.
NFT program, Doing Good, which is a great place to start launch an NFT project if you guys are inclined. So, but thank you so much, Manu, and
Thank
I'll
you
see
so
you next
much.
time, man.
Yeah, thank you so much, Griff. Bye bye.
See you, dude.